So, you want to get into embroidery, machine embroidery. You've seen all kinds of wonderful things people have done, and you think you should have an embroidery machine. But which one do you buy? Well, recently I had someone ask me that question. They were trying to decide between a 500 and a 550E Janome embroidery machine. The one that's just sitting right behind me is the 550E. Now, for those of you that have been long-time subscribers to my YouTube channel, you know that at one point in time I owned a Janome 15,000, which was a combination sewing machine and embroidery machine. And it was my dream machine. At least I thought it was my dream machine, and it turned out to be more my nightmare machine. And why was that? Well, it does both sewing and embroidery, and I think that was the first mistake I made. So if you're looking for an embroidery machine, don't be sucked in by the combo machines. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who have had great success with their combination machines, but I'm not one of them. My 15,000 just worked for a while, really, really well. I did a lot of things on it, and then it didn't work very, very well. And long story short, because I actually have a playlist of that story on my channel, so if you're interested, you can check that out. But long story short, I went through hell with that machine. I no longer have it, and I replaced that machine with a separate sewing machine, a Continental M7 by Janome, and my 550E. And I'm very happy that I did that. And would I buy another combination machine again? No. Too many things can go wrong with that kind of thing. Now, having said that, there is a lot of things that can go wrong with an embroidery machine as well. And this is what I call the rabbit hole, because one thing leads to another when you buy an embroidery machine. For example, while now you've got the machine, you need thread. And there are all kinds of different threads you can use. Floriani is my brand of choice because that's what I started with, and I do love their color selection, and I do love the fact that the Floriani has a bit of a sheen to it, but I have found in the rabbit hole that many of the embroidery threads have a bit of a shine to them. It's all part and parcel of that particular form of art. So you can buy Isacore, you can buy Brother, you can buy, well, one site you can go to that I like as well is Monfil in Canada. They're out of Quebec, and I have talked about them before on the Idiot Quilter. So there's a lot of embroidery threads, and they are not cheap. I pay about $7.99 for a spool of Floriani, and the other ones are of a comparable price as well. So be prepared that once you have the machine, you are going to be spending more money. Then there's going to be the files themselves. And there are lots of online websites you can go to and purchase individual or collections of embroidery files. It's wonderful shopping because you're going to see everything on there that you want. Again, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Now, single embroidery files do not tend to be all that expensive. Collections can be a little bit more pricey, but most of the major online embroidery sites like OESD or Embroidery Library have sales all the time. So you can pick them up fairly reasonably. And once you have them, you own them and do with them what you wish. Many of them have a common use or something license for them, meaning that if you decide that you want to put them on something that you're going to sell at a craft fair or something like that, you can do that. But you do want to check out their licensing when you first download those things to make sure that is allowable. And as I said, you will see so many things, you'll start filling up your cart because these are all downloadable as well. Now that presents a situation with how do you get them on your embroidery machine. So there's the technical side of the embroidery machine. And many people at first get very confused with this. In the old days of machine embroidery, you used to be able to transfer your files over from a CD. But most computers don't have CDs anymore, and you would link the um, machine up physically with a cord to your computer. Or even before then, there were some that came with a card, like the old digital cameras. You'd slip a card into those. Well, you do the same thing with an embroidery machine. So there's something to be careful about. If you are in the market for an embroidery machine, but you're looking at secondhand machines that are older, gently used, as they say, watch out. How do they put the files into the embroidery machine? Because the old ones, you may not be able to do that with anymore, especially if they came with a dedicated card. You may not have anything that can read that card and transfer files over to. So beware of that. And I'm not talking about these machines being like 20, 30 years old. These machines are probably 10 years old in some cases, maybe a little older than that. So watch that if you're thinking about buying a used embroidery machine. I don't recommend buying a used embroidery machine. Yes, a new one costs more. These are not cheap toys, but that's exactly why. If they've been used by somebody, you don't know what problems they have had or what things they did that were wrong, because they can be finicky machines. Ask me how I know, because I know. But back to the whole rabbit hole idea. I love machine embroidery. I'm obsessed with machine embroidery. I especially love not just embroidering on a towel or on a shirt or a bag or something like that, but I love the projects you can make. They're called in the hoop projects. And this really takes your embroidery machine to a new level. You can actually make entire bags and zippered pouches all on your embroidery machine. So they're not just for creating decorations. You can do these other things. You can actually do a quilt, make a quilt, the pieces, the blocks on the embroidery machine as well. And I have done several of them. In fact, you can see some of them in the background right behind me. Those two blue ones, the one that looks like an attic window. Actually, that one was done as an attic window. Sorry. The one that's got Santa standing there looking off into this sunset, starset, whatever. That's all done on the embroidery machine. There's about, I think there's 32 panels in that or something like that, that you all do on the embroidery machine. Does it take a lot of time? Yes. Does it take a lot of thread? Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. But the end result is well worth it. Just as an aside, since at the time of recording this, we are moving into Christmas, if you're thinking of doing one of these for somebody for Christmas, start in like July. Okay? Because, yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So you can do all these different things on an embroidery machine. And I'm obsessed with it. And I go shopping a lot online looking for other designs. I have literally thousands of designs. And that's the other problem. How do you keep track of what you own and what you have? I started a binder at one point in time where I'd print out the designs. I gave up on that. I do have binders still, but I keep those for collections or for special projects. But I just couldn't keep up with it. And there was no easy way that I found for being able to organize your embroidery files. Now, I think, and I need to investigate this further, but I think there may be some programs, but I think they're expensive, that you can put onto your computer, and you can go into your directory where you're keeping all your embroidery files, and it will organize them for you and print you out thumbnails of what each project looks like. That, I think, would be ideal. But I don't know why I haven't got one. There had to be some cost involved that I didn't want to spend the money on at that point in time. I don't know. Maybe that's a project for later today. I'll take a look into that again. But what I'm saying is, if you want to get into machine embroidery, do your research on the machines. There are different ones to find the one that's right for you. think about not only the cost of the machine, but the cost of patterns, the cost of materials. And materials also involve not just thread, but stabilizer, because you will need stabilizer, and there's different types of stabilizer for that as well. And you need to also consider taking a class, maybe. That wouldn't hurt. I took 3 classes when I first got my first embroidery machine, and they were extremely helpful because the manuals that come with these things are not that good, I have found. At least Jannomi's aren't. They suck majorly. But having said that, once you get over the learning curve, well, will you get over the learning curve? No, I'm always learning. I'm always learning about my machine embroidery machine, and I love to push it to the limit. I want to challenge it. I want to see what I can do with it beyond just simple little shapes and diagrams and things like that on cloth. So yeah, it is a rabbit hole, but it's an exciting rabbit hole. It inspires my creativity. I combine it with my quilting. I combine it with bag making and with other projects as well. And that is something that I find makes it well worth the money I spent on my machine. And out of curiosity, if you want to know what I spent on my machine, it was $3,000. So we're not talking a couple of hundred here. We're talking several thousand, depending on the machine you buy. Oh, and one other aside in the rabbit hole. When you're looking at embroidery machines, look at what hoops come with it. And I strongly suggest that you pay the extra to get a machine that has the largest hoop possible, because you will use it. Trust me on that one. Okay, so that's the rabbit hole. You may be thinking about going down it. Maybe someone in your life is very generous and they bought you an embroidery machine, or will be buying you an embroidery machine for Christmas. Have fun, because it is fun. But be prepared for everything else that goes with it.